From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to Firstpost America, your global pit stop for the latest news and headlines from the United States and around the world. I'm Eric Ham coming to you live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. We'll get you a roundup of all the day's top stories, but first, let's take a look at the headlines. President Vladimir Putin appeals to voters in Russia and the annexed regions of Ukraine to cast their ballot in the election on Friday. Over 100 million Russians will vote between the 15th and 17th of March. A high court rules that Japan's lack of recognition of same-sex marriages is unconstitutional. Japan is the only G7 country that does not allow same-sex marriage. Residents in Sudan are using Elon Musk's Starlink satellite connections to access the internet. Millions of Sudanese are facing an internet blackout because of the fighting which erupted in the North African nation last year. At least 16 police officers were injured in an explosion at an FBI training facility in California. The incident occurred during a training exercise between the bomb squad and the SWAT teams. Venezuela's opposition candidate Maria Corina Machado accuses President Nicolas Maduro of trying to sabotage the upcoming presidential election. Maduro's government has banned Machado from running for president. We begin with the Korean Peninsula, where tensions continue to rise. North Korean leader Kim Jong-Un joined his troops in another military exercise. North Korean state media released pictures of the interaction. Kim Jong-Un also unveiled a new tank and called it the world's most powerful armored vehicle. He was also seen sitting in the tank with his head peeking out of the driver's turret. Now North Korean media says their leader drove the tank himself as it took part in the live fire drills. The exercise was designed to inspect combat capabilities of North Korean armored units. It saw the participation of hundreds of tanks. And Kim Jong-un urged the tank operators to be ready for war and have their guns aimed at South Korea's capital, Seoul. These were the third set of live fire drills that the North Korean leader oversaw this month, and they come in response to large-scale ongoing military exercises involving South Korea and American forces called Freedom Shield. Now, Freedom Shield is an annual bilateral exercise which dates all the way back to 1991. However, this year saw the largest deployment of American troops for the drills, and Kim Jong-un has called the drills a provocation for war. But South Korea and the United States say that these drills are a response to Kim Jong-un's nuclear threats.
Through the training, we were able to fully equip ourselves with the ability to overwhelm the enemy with our joint combat operations. In particular, all unit members have gained confidence and assurance that if we are with the United States, we can fight against the enemy.
Lastly, and most importantly, this allows us to build a relationship with our Iraq allies and partners. These relationships are really the bedrock of our alliance here and really what matters the most in everything that we do.
This year's Freedom Shield was focused on increasing interoperability between the two allies. Troops from South Korea and the U.S. practiced conducting strikes on North Korea's nuclear facilities. Since 2022, North Korea has dialed up the testing of its nuclear-capable missiles. And as the nuclear threat from Kim Jong-un continues, the United States and South Korea are planning to include Japan in the Freedom Shield exercises in the future. And while Pyongyang claims that these drills are rehearsals for war, Seoul says that they are purely defensive in nature. As the drumbeat for war heightens, we'll be sure to keep you updated on the latest from the region. And now shifting focus to the Middle East, according to reports, the United States held secret but indirect talks with Iran, focusing on escalating Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. Back in January, in a meeting in Oman, Washington reportedly asked Iran to get the Houthis to stop their attacks on maritime trade. The U.S. delegation was led by the White House's Middle East advisor, Brett McGurk, and Iranian envoy Abram Paley. Iran sent its deputy foreign minister, Ali Bagheri Khani, for the talks. They also addressed Tehran's nuclear program. And the two sides only spoke with the Omani mediators and not directly with each other. A second round of talks was supposed to be held in February, but was delayed due to attempts to broker a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Now, while these talks were the first public discussions between the United States and Iran since September, Washington has reportedly been using diplomatic channels with Iran to put an end to hostilities in the Red Sea that were triggered by the Israel-Hamas war. Reports say Washington sees the indirect channel of communications as a way of addressing the full range of threats emanating from Iran. In fact, in January, President Joe Biden said the U.S. has delivered messages privately to Iran on the Houthi attacks that the United States was confident and well prepared to tackle the Houthis. Reports also say the U.S. had asked China to pressure Iran into getting the Houthis to end their offensive. The issue was reportedly raised in several discussions between American and Chinese officials. Sources say China and Iran discussed attacks in the Red Sea and their impact on trade. However, there is little evidence to show China made any effort to pressure Iran on the matter. The West claims Iran has been directly helping the Houthis with their assaults by providing them with drones, missiles, and intelligence to conduct their strikes. The U.S. military also said that Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is functioning inside Yemen, serving side by side with the Houthis and providing them with information on targets. Now Tehran has admitted that politically they back the Houthis and have justified their attacks as support for Palestinians in Gaza. However, Iran insists that the rebels who control the northern Yemen are acting independently. Now, despite multiple coordinated strikes by the U.S. and the U.K. against their military facilities, the Houthis have continued to attack ships in the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden, and the Bab al-Mandab Strait. Since October, they've launched nearly 100 attacks. And from the Middle East to Europe, Ukraine has launched sweeping drone and missile strikes on Russian regions targeting its oil and energy infrastructure for the second consecutive day. A Ukrainian attack using heavy drones caused a fire at one of Russia's major oil refineries. Rosneft's Ryazan oil refinery, which is Russia's seventh largest, was seriously damaged. Plumes of black smoke were seen at the Ryazan plant. Reportedly, this plant accounts for more than 6% of Russia's gasoline production. On Tuesday, Ukrainian drones also targeted a Lukoil refinery in Kistovo and an energy infrastructure in Kirishi. These three facilities account for about 10% of Russia's total oil processing capacity. And this has been one of the most serious attacks against Russia's energy sector in recent months. In fact, Kyiv says these attacks have caused quite significant damage on the targeted refineries. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says his country is only responding to Russian aggression.
We will inflict losses on the Russian state in response, quite rightly. They in the Kremlin should get used to the fact that the terror does not go unpunished for them. Nothing will cure these patients from evil, but they will feel the loss. The Russian state will lose, and only this can make it safe for its neighbors, not only for Ukraine.
Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin called these attacks an attempt to disrupt the country's presidential election, which begins on March 15th.
All Ukrainian attacks are happening at the times of failures on the front line. They have not achieved any of the goals they set themselves last year. And what's more, now the initiative has been completely taken over by our armed forces. Everyone knows this. Everyone recognizes it. I don't think I can say anything new here. As these failures happen, they need to show something at least. And they mainly focus on the media part. The main goal, I have no doubt about it, is to, if not to disrupt the presidential elections in Russia, then at least somehow interfere with the normal process of expressing the will of citizens. Secondly, as I've already said, it's about informational component. And thirdly, if they have some success, to get some kind of chance, some kind of argument, some kind of trump card in possible future negotiation process.
Now, in recent months, both Kyiv and Moscow have stepped up drone attacks. The latest strike saw at least 60 drones and 7 missiles launched by Ukraine, targeting Moscow, Leningrad, Belgorod, and 4 other regions. One drone flying towards Moscow was down over the Raminsky district. And at least 4 out of the 32 major refineries in Russia have been attacked this year. Some of them, like the Rosneft plant in Tuapse that was attacked in January, have ceased operations. Now, oil refineries are a key source of Russia's income, and these strikes have the potential to reduce the country's gasoline and diesel output and increase prices. In fact, on Wednesday, oil prices rose 2%, partly due to concerns surrounding supply disruption following these attacks. Earlier this month, Russia implemented a ban on petrol exports in an effort to keep prices stable amid the rising demand. Still, Ukraine's effort to strike at the heart of Russia's economic center hasn't stopped Moscow's aggression. In fact, in the latest attack, Russia launched missiles that hit 2 apartment buildings in Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's hometown. At least 3 people were killed and over 38 injured in the attack. Rescue teams were seen sifting through the rubble and searching for survivors. Russian forces also bombed a residential building in the eastern city of Kharkiv. Our next story is from the Caribbean. Kenya has made a U-turn on Haiti. After agreeing to deploy troops to the violence-stricken nation, Kenyan President William Ruto's government has now halted the move. Meanwhile, armed gangs led by Jimmy Chirizier continue their rampage with no replacement in sight for Prime Minister Ariel Henry. Haitians are hoping for the storm to pass as Kenya does an abrupt about-face. Our report takes you inside.
These were the streets of Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince. The Caribbean nation has been under the grip of violence for weeks. Armed gangs have declared a coup against Prime Minister Ariel Henry. Leading the charge is former cop turned gangster Jimmy Chirizier, also known as Barbecue. The violence has left thousands of Haitians displaced. The world has been slow to react. The timing of the violence was strategic because Prime Minister Henry was out of the country. The Haitian leader was in Africa. He met Kenya's President William Ruto, and the 2 leaders signed an agreement allowing Kenya to deploy 1,000 police officers in Haiti. The Kenyan troops were to lead an international mission of almost 20 countries to curb the menace of violent gangs. As the intensity of the violence picked up, Kenya prepared its security personnel for deployment.
The status is as you know it. There was a small court matter. That small matter has been resolved because the court said we needed to have a reciprocal agreement with Haiti. That reciprocal agreement has already been signed about a week ago. So we are now in the pre-deployment stage.
But these plans have been cut short. Haiti's Prime Minister has resigned, and Kenya is rethinking its mission to Haiti. President Ruto's government has put a halt on the deployment of its troops, and this has gotten widespread support from Kenyans.
We insist even in things which are illegal. So I thank God because it has come to an end, because now it has been stopped. So our children who are going to be killed outside now are safe.
Our police, our government, they are not ready for that. Yes. I think they should train our police. Then after that, they can look at it and then they go back there.
Haiti has no government, it has no structure, so it's not advisable, as let's say, like, if our government really cares for our people, they won't even consider doing that.
Kenya's reluctance to send police forces has gotten America worried. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has confirmed that Kenya's halt on deployment is a temporary measure.
I was on the phone this morning with President Ruto of Kenya, who confirmed Kenya's preparedness to lead that mission. As soon as this new council is stood up, which we believe will happen in the next couple of days, and an interim prime minister is selected.
As the violence continues, Washington has deployed troops from its Marine Corps to protect its embassy in Port-au-Prince. On the other hand, Haitians are blaming the US for the turmoil.
The resignation of Ariel Henry is a game that the Americans are playing with Ariel Henry. The day the Haitian people unite, we can give another example to the whole world. They will never accept that we unite. This is a game. The Americans are very guilty of what is happening now. The majority of weapons in Haiti come from the United States.
The deployment of an international peacekeeping force poses many challenges. Questions like who will pay for Kenya's deployment and what are the guarantees of their success still remain. As Jimmy Cherizier and gangs continue to rule the streets of Port-au-Prince, the crisis in Haiti remains far from over.
And finally, we turn our attention to Nigeria's northern Kaduna state, where on March 8th, a gang kidnapped at least 286 school children. Now, it's been about a week and the whereabouts of the children remain unknown. There's been no breakthrough despite the deployment of dozens of search parties. And now the kidnappers have reached out with a ransom demand of 1 billion Nigerian Naira. Our next report explains the unfolding crisis.
This is 13-year-old Aminu Abdullahi. On the 8th of March, he left home for school as he usually would, holding hands with his elder brother, 15-year-old Aminu Usman. But the moment the two brothers reached the school, a tragedy unfolded. Panic gripped the school as motorcycle-riding armed men, cloaked in military attire, stormed in.
The bandits came on motorcycles and started shouting and shooting, and all the students ran away and went to the nearby bush. When I was running, one of the bandits was following me, but I was dodging because he was following me on a bike. I was running around looking for a way to escape, and I was able to run across the road and ran inside the bush and came back home from there.
Aminu Abdullahi escaped, but unfortunately his elder brother could not. Armed men abducted 286 children and staff members from a school in Nigeria's Kuriga. Innocent kids who went to school as students ended up as hostages. 6 days on, their parents are still waiting for their children to come home. The kidnappers have demanded a ransom of 1 billion Naira, which is about $2,000 per hostage, a cruel price for the lives of innocent souls. The kidnappers have set a 20-day deadline. They say if the ransom is not paid, they will kill all 286 children.
How can these gunmen come and carry our children? This is the reason why I am so sad. This is our Kuriga. Please, Your Excellency, help us.
The government has deployed dozens of officials to look for the missing children. The officials have been directed to sweep through forest areas to look for them. But so far, little detail has emerged. Families of these children say they don't trust the government and that the time is running out.
Since this happened, my brain has been scattered. I can't even walk around because I'm worried about the children and their condition. My child didn't even eat breakfast before leaving. It's been 2 days now and we don't know anything.
The incident in southern Nigeria has been the biggest mass kidnapping targeting a school since 2021. But Nigeria has been struggling with the problem of mass abductions for years now. The country's soil has been stained with the tears of countless families torn apart by senseless violence. Such kidnappings were first carried out by jihadist group Boko Haram in 2014. About 276 teenage schoolgirls were kidnapped from the Borno state. In 2018, over 110 girls from the Yobe state were kidnapped by insurgents. In 2020, over 300 boys were abducted from the Katsina state by gunmen on motorcycles. In 2021, about 300 schoolgirls were kidnapped in a nighttime raid from the Zamfara state. The Boko Haram tactic is now being adopted by several criminal gangs. These new gangs mostly have no political or religious affiliation, but they commit these mass kidnappings for money. According to reports, over 4,500 people have been kidnapped after President Bola Tinubu assumed office in May 2023. In most cases, almost all the kidnapped were released for ransom payments after weeks or months in captivity. With their faith in the authorities dwindling over the years, family members of those kidnapped usually pool in their savings for ransom money. But the Nigerian president has asked the families in Kuriga to not pay even a dime to the kidnappers. For now, the helpless parents stare out of their windows with uncertainty. Not knowing if they will ever be able to hold their children again, they cling on to the fragile threads of hope, praying for a miracle.
That's all we have for today. We thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks again for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden. How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-Un was shown